had heard like rumblings about maybe anamorphic coming to cinema lenses. Sigma obviously announced that they had a anamorph or not anamorphic, sorry, a autofocusing cinema lens. And so I just got like obviously as someone who got hands on with it, what was the actual experience like seeing autofocus in a cinema lens, but more importantly, an anamorphic lens? Because I feel like for a lot of people, manually focusing is what keeps them out of certain lenses. So I feel like this could be very groundbreaking. What was it like to actually get hands on with it?
It goes back and forth for me because, as you guys know, I do small things where it's just me and I like desperately need autofocus, or I'm on bigger film sets. So it goes back and forth. But playing around with the autofocus, I went from like low hopes to actually being impressed with it and excited about it. And reason being is because it's a Super 35 and it's a 1.3x squeeze. So meanwhile, I'm like, all right, that's off the table. But I was there, so I figured I'd play around with it. So me with a lot of my go-to stuff, I'm running on FX3, so autofocus is great to have with that. So I just put it on and I was playing around, and immediately it doesn't even look it like, it feels very comparable to the Remus as far as like squeeze factor and look to it. It doesn't look like who ruined it for me, like the 1.3 stretch was like Cerui back in the days. Like the first 1.3, I was like, I don't care about it. It looks terrible. So immediately I had a bad taste. But Blazar being Blazar they were like, I'm not going to tell you how it's done, but there's some secret sauce in there. So I was like, all right, I'll play around with it. And it's got like really, it still has that barrel distortion look and all of that. So I was like, all right, I'm sold on it. And then being Super 35, you've got the clear image zoom on my Sony, crops out the vignetting a little bit. So that kind of saved me. It's not like a direct replacement to a full frame, but like if it's there and it works, yeah, I'm going to use it. So playing around with it, it worked actually really, really well. I think that they announced to me like there was a prototype, like it's early on, there's bugs to fix where like it just wouldn't track the face or anything like that. But for the most part, it was working, and it was working well. And it's nice for like, say, dock pickup stuff or run and gun stuff where you don't have an AC, but you need to make sure your focus is sharp. And maybe you're matching it on the project with the Remus for other scenes, for like interviews or whatever. I think that it's a great addition to it all.
Brady, I've got a quick question. I'm going to put your feet to the fire. Which autofocus system is better, the DJI LiDAR or the autofocus from the Apex, from the anamorphic? What would you say it works better, or how close would you compare the two?
I'm going to go from an overall like entire workflow thing, because I've got the DJI LiDAR and I played around with that. And immediately I would, lens choice depending, it's almost like apples and oranges. Say it's just like you're using one and the other and you got the same look. I would go for the Blazar because you connect it to camera and it's just good. You don't have to like track each lens, and you don't have to swap it all out, and you don't have all the finickiness of it. And then the autofocus performance, sometimes DJI is kind of finicky. Like it doesn't exactly know how to read, especially when things are backlit. So I would say the Blazar, but then that backtracks to like that part B of the question of like, well, I can use any Cine lens that I want with the DJI LiDAR. So that's got the upper edge, but it's kind of at the cost of setting everything up. And if you've got, like, if you're familiar with it, it's quick and easy. But if you're not too familiar with the product, it takes a good 20 minutes to get everything dialed in. So I could go back and forth.
That's a very large stamp of approval for the Apex, in my eyes, because I feel like
no,
nobody sees this.
Nobody watches this show. No,
Dude,
nobody watches the show.
What is that 150 up there?
I don't know what that is.
That's such a huge, to me, that's such a huge stamp of approval on their prototype Apex. Like your first go around of autofocus on.
But I'll say I'm also like, that bar is a little bit higher as far as like how impressed I am, because getting down to like, I guess like light physics or whatever, like anamorphic lenses, it's hard to autofocus because it's squeezing the lens and it's squeezing light, and then you got to de-squeeze it later. So the sensor can't really read as easily. That's at least why I think they went for the 1.3 squeeze at first, because if you're totally crunching this image, autofocus sensors, like cameras almost, I feel like would need to get up to speed with that to be able to work for that, because it's at the end of the day just reading a squeezed image. It's like reading a book where everything is like tightened up. It's not going to be as easy. So that's why they probably went for the 1.3. I think that, and this is all kind of off of I know this is an early on prototype. It is not out and ready yet. There are still things that need to be fixed and ironed out, but I think that it's a very great foot in the door for what is also possible. And they've done it kind of with a pretty heavy foot as well.
Yeah, I feel like to the point that you made, like if we start seeing cinema lenses, because like spherical cinema lenses are going to be easier to manufacture when it comes to like autofocusing than anamorphic will be because of that squeeze factor. But to Brady's point, I personally feel like if we can see like cinema lenses getting autofocusing technology built into them, if they're good enough, I don't think we even need a DJI LiDAR type system, because like the whole purpose of a DJI LiDAR system is to be able to give you autofocusing technology to manual focus lenses. Well, the easiest way to do that is just put the autofocus technology inside of those manual focus lenses. One question I did have, and I don't know if you got a chance to talk to him about the technical aspects of this, but like obviously with a cinema lens of spherical or anamorphic, you're literally turning the barrel and that's adjusting your focus, right? But when you have it switched into autofocus, is there some type of like autofocus by wire that's happening inside of the camera? And then when you switch it to manual focus, you go back to actually turning the barrel? Or like, do you know how that system is currently working?
For the Blazar?
Yeah, for the Blazar specifically.
It's got to be something electronic, because it didn't feel like there was a major switch when I switched it. Like on the barrel, it didn't feel like anything was like physically switching over. So I'm assuming when you switch in manual focus, it's probably some sort of electronic. I don't know if it's like what Sony's have internally or whatever. I didn't really ask because I figured that not many people would tell me the answers. But it felt like it was a hybrid between like a G Master and Blazar's anamorphics in a way of like how it felt and functioned. And it was light. It was really light. Like a lot, like noticeably lighter than the Remus.
Gotcha. That's wild. I feel like that we are seeing, like, it feels like this year, not only are we seeing like just like crazy advancements in cameras and in gear in general, but we're also seeing like price reductions like we've never seen before. And now we're kind of getting that next step of it, which is just like brand new technology that just like, you know, a year ago didn't exist. Like the idea of a auto-focusing cinema lens, let alone an auto-focusing anamorphic lens, didn't even seem like,
beautiful budget anamorphic lens, period.
Yeah. Like even the Blazar is at that price point. Like even like a full kit for such an affordable price point just felt so unobtainable.
They feel like they're innovating too fast. It's like, boom, incredible lens. Boom, incredible new set of lenses. Boom, autofocus. Like, it's awesome. Like, it's a great time to be alive, but holy crap, they're innovating so fast.
Yeah, I feel like Blazar as a company, they definitely like they're moving so fast, but I wonder if it's like because they also have their pulse like on the manufacturing side of things. They're like, we gotta go right now.
They
like,
have their pulse
yeah.
on Cam Mack.
Yeah, wow. I think
Cam is who put me onto them. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
he showed me them, and I was just like, he told me he's like, it's this new company, it's a budget anamorphic, and I literally was like, oh, I don't care about that. And like I was like, it's just another budget anamorphic, and then I didn't even care. He's like, you want to put it on your camera? I was like, not really. And then I saw his clips like 3 days later of it, and I was like, holy! I was like, this thing is sweet.
Yeah, Cam normally has a pretty good insight, especially on anamorphic. Now that's like his whole thing.
It's his brand.
Camera doesn't have an open gate. It's not even in his wheelhouse. Hey, thanks so much for checking out this clip. But you know what's better than watching these clips? Enjoying the show live, which we do every single Friday at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. The best part is if you disagree with what we have to say, you can tell us that live in the chat. So we'd love to see you there this Friday.